Psychology is a scientific study of the status of the mind and an individual's behavior. Social isolation by choice or induced by another person can be detrimental to the emotional development of a human being. Studies show that being socially isolated brings greater risks of health issues and early death. Lonely people consistently experience high blood pressure, are vulnerable to infection, and can also be more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease and dementia. There is a direct association between the lack of physical contact and higher levels of stress hormones and inflammation. Some of the most profound effects of loneliness are on the mind. Clinical psychologist Ian Robbins isolated 6 volunteers for 48 hours in soundproof rooms in a former nuclear bunker. The volunteers suffered anxiety, extreme emotions, paranoia, and significant deterioration in their mental functioning. They also hallucinated, seeing very strange images and scenarios. In addition, cognitive psychologists believe that there is a part of the brain that deals with specific tasks. The brain has the capability to handle a large quantity of information, such as visual, auditory, and other environmental cues. However, when there is a dearth of information, the various nerve systems continue feeding impulses into the brain's central processor, but in a disorganized way that doesn't make sense. The mind creates whole images out of partial ones and tries to conduct a reality from the limited signals available to it, which ends up building a fantasy world. Social interaction is essential to the development of a healthy human being. Social deprivation occurs when an individual is consistently deprived of cultural interaction with the rest of society. Research has proven how social deprivation is linked to human development and mental illness. When an individual misses critical periods or windows of time where they need to experience particular environmental stimuli in order to develop properly, it may delay or hinder cognitive development. Feral children provide an example of the effects of severe social deprivation during critical developmental periods. Feral children are children who grow up with limited social interaction, physical contact, and are emotionally disconnected. In some cases, they may have been abused by parents who keep them isolated from other people. We can infer that because Boo Radley, from To Kill a Mockingbird, was secluded at an early age by his father, he was affected by these stipulations. Boo Radley is viewed as a monster, a night-prowling, cat and squirrel-eating, skeleton-like monster. The town of Macomb believes that Boo is a mysterious and hateful creature. The people elaborate fictitious stories about Boo. These manufactured stories further hurt Boo's image. Because Boo was isolated for most of his life, it could have caused mental illness. Although his illness was not addressed directly, it is suggested that Boo Radley suffered from an emotional or behavioral disorder. Because very little is disclosed regarding the daily life of the Radley house, it is difficult to completely determine whether Boo's behavior was a genetic condition or an acquired condition due to his isolation. In the book, Miss Monty said that Boo had been a very polite child and that most of the stories about him are simply rumors. This information provides a different perspective. Therefore, we could assume that his isolation and his parents' abuse could have caused his behavior. As a result of isolation, Boo Radley only wanted a sense of communication with Gem and Scout. Therefore, he would leave the children gifts in the knothole of the tree, and that was their mode of communication and connection. The book indicates that when Boo Radley was a teenager, he would spend time with misbehaved, troublemaking boys. They would drink and be disorderly. Boo's behavior as an 18-year-old indicates that he was not mentally ill and was acting like other teenagers. Boo's unruly behavior resulted in Boo's confinement to the Radley's house. The Radley place, where Boo lived, is looked at with suspicion and terror. In Chapter 1 of the book, the house is described as a neglected house that people run by out of fear. The house stands tall and alone in one corner with broken shutters and windows, overgrown grass, and peeling paint from the wall. Boo's house was located in the path of children walked on the way to school and from school. Boo watched the children every day. Although Boo was portrayed as a scary man, that was not the case. At the end of the book, Boo's state of mind was that of a compassionate, sensitive, and helpful person, which is demonstrated when he saved Gem and Scout. Boo was caring and looked after the children, and that is how he was able to save them that night from Bob Ewell. Bob Ewell was a drunken, racist man who was seen many times on the wrong side of the law. Bob Ewell wanted to seek revenge on Atticus Finch's children, Gem and Scout, because Atticus was the lawyer defending a black man wrongfully accused of raping Bob Ewell's daughter. Unfortunately, Boo did not receive the help he needed to function appropriately in society. Today, Boo will receive assistance that consists of the development of social skills and emotional support required to operate in the community. This therapy is targeted to leading him slowly back into as close to a normal life as possible. People who are mentally ill are the most isolated group of all, which makes matters even worse. Today we could bring Boo to a psychologist so he can slowly regain contact. One of the most important things a person with mental illness needs is love, trust, and support. With an appropriate evaluation, treatment, and continued care, most people with mental illness can return to their normal lives. The treatments available to someone in Boo's mental state could help their psychological condition to improve and live well despite the presence of ongoing symptoms. When someone first starts to develop symptoms of mental illness, one must contact a doctor or community mental health care provider for assistance. A physician or psychiatrist makes a diagnosis based on a person's particular pattern of symptoms. The doctor discusses with the patient the symptoms treated and side effects of the treatment recommended. There are many community mental health services to support an individual's recovery and help them gain access all services they need. If there is someone who suffers from the same mental illness as Boo, there are certainly numerous ways to help and cure him or her. In conclusion, Boo Radley suffered several effects because of his isolation, including mental illness. In the end, he was still able to save Jem and Scout from Bob Ewell despite his mental condition.